I have a guest on right now. He's waiting backstage, and I'm going to present him. Garland Farms has his words to say. So everybody give a good hand to Mr. Garland Farms. Hi, Garland. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very, very well. So
good.
I think you have something you would like to share with us.
Oh, well, I just made the one comment earlier on your stream in the text comment sections, making the claim that willful ignorance of the exponential amount of animal suffering and death that is associated with crop agriculture, which is the production of essentially the vegan menu, is low frequency vibration. I don't think it can get any lower than that, than the willful ignorance of the suffering and death that is associated with one's diet.
Would you like to expand on that? I mean, who are you referring to as vibing on a low frequency?
Anyone who is willfully ignorant of the suffering and death that comes along with living without eating meat.
Okay, so the people that decide that they don't want to eat meat are contributing to a low frequency vibration. Is this what you're saying?
Yes. I think that their essence is low frequency. And I have no hard proof of this, just like you don't have hard proof of meat eaters being low frequency. You say that that's what you've gathered from your research. However, you can't.
No, that's not exactly what I'm trying to say here. It's like, okay, I'm going to explain this in the best way I can. In your brain, you have a pituitary gland, which secretes serotonin, okay? And your pineal gland secretes DMT, which is, in other words, is also known as melatonin, okay? These two liquids travel through your column, down your spinal cord, into your scrotum, stays there for 3 days, and then through fasting, okay, you raise the chrism, which is the Christ consciousness, the sacred liquid, the land of milk and honey, because, in other words, the serotonin and the melatonin are the milk and the honey. These two liquids, once they've come back up through the sacrum and up through the spinal cord and back through the chrism, it sprays, like the liquid goes into your brain and activates, the other 90% of your brain that's not working. So what that does is there are certain things that prevent that alchemical process from being done. Okay. And two of this, I give you two examples. First, the biggest one, all right, is alcohol drinking. If you drink alcohol, if you think you're going to raise that, it just kills that liquid. All right. It kills it completely. And another thing is, if you're eating meat, all right, whatever's inside the meat, okay, is also preventing from that liquid from rising up through your spinal cord. So it has absolutely nothing to do with veganism or vegetarianism or any of these things. And you can't hold people that are on a spiritual journey accountable for all the death and agriculture in the world. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Why?
If you do want to hold vegans and vegetarians accountable for this is absolutely your issue. But I find that there's no reason to, because the focus that we should be having is not against between each other and fighting between each other about superficial subjects, when the real culprit in this story are the controllers, are the people who are imposing this onto us. And I think you and I can agree on that, at least.
Yes, on that we can certainly agree. For instance, did you know that are you familiar with Monsanto?
Isn't that company an agricultural company or something like that there that produces am I wrong?
Well, yeah, Monsanto is the chemical company that was bought by Bayer Pharmaceuticals. They're the ones that created Agent Orange and made a fortune spraying Agent Orange back in the day, DDT, and now they have cousin chemicals like Roundup, which is also known as glyphosate. So did you know that the FDA actually, they waited 40 years before they did these tests, but eventually they did, probably just to see how successful they were poisoning people. But in 2016, they released the results, and they found that in the food crops, over half the samples tested positive for dangerous levels of this poison glyphosate. In soy, it was over 67% of the soy out there has got this glyphosate poison in it. 48% of wheat tested positive for this poison. 80% of rice tested positive for this poison. And 59% of corn tested positive for dangerous levels of this poison. And that's just the glyphosate. That's not including the neonicotinoid pesticides that are poisoning the waterways, causing oceanic dead zones, causing cancer, and driving many species of endangered animals into extinction. When we avoid meat, we're not opting for a better alternative, not only because modern plant food sources are all part of this group that you would call the controllers, but also because it's a scientific fact that a plant-based diet is void of important nutrients like vitamin B12. Now, there are people that are suffering from these nutritional deficiencies, and they're real. Nutrients are real, and deficiencies are real. And the consequences of deficiencies are real. Now, the plant-based enthusiasts will say, well, just take a supplement. These supplements are made in a lab, so take a supplement. Actually, no, these supplements are not made in a lab. If you were to look at the facilities where these supplements are manufactured, it actually takes multiple factories that have these giant smokestacks that are emitting gargantuan amounts of carcinogens into the air. B12 supplements, for instance, require two things that I would think that a plant-based diet enthusiast would be against, and that is coal. It requires gargantuan amounts of coal. Coke ovens, which is where you heat coal up to a very high temperature using methane, leading to methane emissions. The heating of the coal also releases gargantuan amounts of carcinogens. You have entire towns now that are coming down with cancer because they're creating the products that go into the manufacture of the B12 supplements that vegans and vegetarians rely upon. So what I'm saying is that anyone who's a plant-based food enthusiast and is communicating to the people that eating meat, all cases of eating meat is harmful and bad, who is willfully ignorant of the dark side of the crop agriculture that brings the plant-based diet, the vegan and vegetarian menu, to the market, I would say, speaking your language, I would say that's super low vibrational frequency. Speaking another language, I might say that that's intellectually dishonest, and I think that it's harmful, and I think that it's playing right into the hands of the controllers. Can you imagine a world where people were not able to get all of their essential nutrients from the foods that they eat, from foods that they could produce at home, that they had to take a pill that would be supplied to them by the controllers to remain healthy and living. Can you get more dystopian than that?
Yeah, well, like Mary says there, okay, factory farming is atrocious, dude.
Well, yes, it is, but how much of your diet comes from factory farming?
Well, none of it, especially because I fast I do intermittent fasting, so I practically don't eat much. I have a piece of bread here and there.
I do intermittent fasting myself, so, but anyone who's intermittent fasting is eating. By intermittent means that you're just basically you're going longer than most people go between meals.
Exactly.
Right. So you're still eating food.
Yes.
So of the food that you eat, what percentage of your diet, of your intermittent fasting diet, comes from sources that are free of lethal crop protection measures, agrochemicals, pesticides, free of the factory farming that you refer to that is so damaging?
Well, I can actually admit that I don't know. You understand? I couldn't know exactly where the food that I buy comes from. Yeah, I would have to research every single item that I buy and know exactly where it comes from, and if it was like like grass-fed animals and stuff like that. And but I have done some research on that, and I do buy some. I try to buy the most organic possible, and I try to stay as healthy as possible. And this is in the quantities of meat that I eat are practically inexistent, and this is like a choice. It's like I feel good about myself. I feel good in my body. I feel healthy. I don't feel deficient of anything. So I mean, I don't see the difference between me and you. You understand? Like, let's say you're a meat eater. I'm a vegetarian. Well, I eat what I eat, and I feel healthy. So if you eat what you eat and you feel healthy, so everybody's happy, right? But I would argue that I think you will die of a heart attack before I will.
Well, you'll argue that, but only time will tell. Heart attacks, by the way, if you'll look into the studies that do not prove a cause that meat causes heart attacks, but there's an association. And the studies that were controlled, the meats were actually cooked in seed oils. You see, when seed oils first came on the scene, they were industrial oils. We used them for lamp fuel, for lighting. We used them for lubrication in machines. We used them for fuel in machines. And we knew back then that seed oils were deadly. They caused tremendous amounts of disease, mostly because of the inflammation and the fact that they're mostly rancid. So if you take a meat and you cook it in rancid seed oil and then turn around and blame the consequences of eating a seed oil tainted food on the meat, then that's just another case of intellectual dishonesty. None of these studies that you could point at that draw an association between the eating of meat and heart attacks involve meat that was produced by regenerative ruminant grazing systems, void of any crops, coming from animals that were raised on natural forages, natural prairie forages, just like the bison that grazed and migrated around the North American continent before the Europeans settled it.
Well, you know what? I appreciate that you're speaking truth, because that resonates with me. You understand? That's something that absolutely resonates with me, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. Unfortunately, we have opposing points of views on certain aspects of this subject, but we also have a lot of things in common. So where I'm going at is what are the solutions? What can you and I do so we could be on the same playing field, on the same team? Because you know what, I you know what would be interesting for me was to promote. I would promote your channel. I absolutely would, because I think that what you're bringing to the table is truth and facts, and these things are also very important in the truther community. You understand? But we have to stop pointing fingers at each other. This is the whole thing. We have to come together and make a difference. We have to not blame each other for what's going on in the world, because vegans are going to blame meat eaters for everything that's going bad in the world, and then it's going to be vice versa, and it's just a never-ending story. To me, I think the best thing is to seek God, all right, and find your spiritual purpose, okay, and while doing so, sharing all this information together for a common goal. And that is to get rid of these controllers that are controlling us and using this system to dumb us down to a point where we're arguing and pointing fingers at each other and not pointing the fingers at the real culprits in this story. Back to you, Garland.
I think that I would love for the discourse to reach an area where we could stop pointing fingers. I would absolutely adore that scenario, and I love the idea. However, there's a few things that are getting in the way of that. When I got into farming, I did lots of research, and I actually have been researching it for 30 years at least, and realized that what would be best for my farm, what would be best for the environment, what would be best for the people, would be to pursue a regenerative ruminant grazing operation where I'm actually building soil carbon, building the soil water infiltration potential, refilling the aquifer. The science behind what I'm doing and what other farmers like Greg Judy and Gabe Brown and Joel Salatin is solid. We're basically mimicking God's nature is what we're doing. When I look at my daily routine, I would much rather just focus on the operation. But I know that the controllers are pushing veganism, and the vegans are not willing to just eat their plants and take their pills and leave me alone. They're actually actively demonizing me. They're equating me with murderers and rapists. The controllers are financing and lobbying for legislation to criminalize all animal agriculture, not just the harmful factory farming, the concentration camp feeding operations that I don't support.
Would you agree with me when I tell you that these vegan pushing agendas are being done by agents? You understand, like disinformation agents, which are causing this division. It's purposely done. You understand? Like I believe that most of the people that are vegan or like the real ones, the ones that are doing it for a personal reason and not to promote this agenda, if you will, that they're doing it for a personal reason. And if they wouldn't demonize you and treat you as such, that's my personal belief. I would never demonize you and treat you like garbage because you eat. I would not judge you for that at all, because what I do for myself is a personal choice, and it has nothing to do with anybody else around me. It has everything to do with my personal journey. So, I mean, I absolutely agree with you on that point, because we have to point the finger at the real people who are doing this to us. You understand? We have to point out that these arguments are being created by them to keep us in division, to keep us arguing amongst each other, instead of finding solutions together to better this world and to rid us of these parasites, live a better life, and in communion with our brothers and sisters.
I understand, Pat, but I will say that when I logged into Jason Schwartz's channel, it was just by coincidence that you were speaking whenever I clicked on and started listening to you guys. And you were in the middle of explaining to Jason that it's his choice if he wants to eat meat. However, eating meat is comparable to adultery, it's comparable to murder, and that you were explaining how the pathway to God is very narrow, and eating meat is not going to allow you to enter the kingdom of God.
But that was the allegorical meaning of what I was explaining via the sacred secretion. Do you understand? It has nothing to do with me telling you that you have a narrow vision. The narrow path that they're talking about is your column, your spinal cord. The narrow path is the spinal cord. These are all our allegorical meanings that people understand in their own way. Jason, if he wants to take what I say literally, when I speak with spiritual truths. So what I was trying to explain to him is, if you eat meat, you're going to destroy that alchemical process that you need to connect yourself with your pineal gland and have that connection with the creator, the ultimate creator, the only one. And people can pray and lounge and look at the sky and believe that there's going to be this person that's going to come on a freaking horse and with his bunch of angels come and save your ass. That's delusional. That is like believing in Santa Claus. So you understand, there are some things that I try to bring people to the light, because you have to be more than just literal about things. This is not just some kind of literal war that we're having with guns. This is a spiritual war. We're wrestling against principalities and mind control. We're here. We're supposed to be here to grow together and find solutions to the best way that we can to fight this.
Yes, definitely. I think that what I'm trying to communicate to you is, if you're not making an effort to exclude plant foods from your diet that contain harmful amounts of glyphosate pesticides and neonicotinoid pesticides, etc. And these are pesticides that aren't just on the surface and can be washed off. It soaks into the soil, the roots absorb it into the flesh of the plant, and so the products that you're buying on the shelf contain these poisons. And
okay,
earlier,
I just want to respond to that before you go on. Is that when I go into the grocery store, the best way I can think of trying to, think of my health and be self-conscious about it, is going into the organic section and buying products that haven't been, with pesticides and GMOs. But I'll say this though, nothing proves to me that the company that put that vegetable or fruit there did not pay the company to put that little sticker saying that that it's organic. So in any other way of the sense, if you walk into that grocery store and you buy organic, you don't even know if it's literally organic or not. The only real way that you can know if it's organic or not is if you grow it yourself in your own yard.
No, that's not exactly true. That's not exactly true.
Well, unless if you research it. You research the company. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you want to escape the controllers. The controllers are the ones that are the middlemen here, that stand between you and the farmer that actually produces it. So if you were to make an effort to buy locally produced food from local farmers who are claiming that their products are clean, most of those farmers,
now
including
you're speaking
myself,
my language. Now you're speaking my language.
Anyone that I had a meat business selling organic, regeneratively grass-fed, grass-finished beef, but they're lazy, they're dependent upon the controllers, And there's just not enough support for local farmers to keep a business like that running. So I shut it down. And I shut down the meat business. I'm still raising ruminants regeneratively, but I would allow you to come on my operation, and I would be thrilled to show you what I'm doing. I would show you the inside of my barns to show you that there's no grains here being fed. There's no toxic industrial byproducts being fed to my cattle. They receive no antibiotics. They receive no vaccines. They receive no pest control measures. They're clean.
Wow.
Inside and
All
out.
right. So I would like suggest everybody in the chat right now, and everybody that's going to see this this amazing, once again, this amazing live stream. I'm happy for you to be here right now, Garland. I'm very, very impressed what you have to say, and I would suggest everybody to go subscribe to your channel. And if you want to learn more about Garland Farms, then please don't hesitate to drop a link of your channel in the chat, Garland. It would be my pleasure to promote your channel.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So this is going forward in a good direction, because I finally see like solutions that are coming out of you, like promoting and going to your local farms and buying food from your local farmer instead of encouraging the system.
There is a website that I'm not associated with, but I would encourage people to go to eatwild.com. And up near the top of the page on the left-hand margin is a link to North American, and I think that would include Canada as well, but local regenerative plant food and meats producers who are organic, grass-fed, grass-finished, chemical-free, and that way people can buy straight from their local farmer and support local food producers, and that way they can actually know that their diet is as clean as possible. So that would be eatwild.com.
All right. So if you want to drop that link in the chat, that'd be perfect. Send people over there so they can go research that for themselves and get to know a different side. And I really appreciate you being here, because, you know, to me, you're a truther, man. And as someone who seeks and speaks the truth, is always welcome on my panel.
Thanks for having me, Pat. I appreciate it.
It was a great conversation. I mean, is there anything else you would like to point out? Are some things that you would like the viewers to, like, if you have any other information that you would like to add on to this? Maybe some people are interested to know.
Yeah, I think that this is a multifaceted disco ball of issues. One of the things that I think it's important for people who don't eat meat for ethical reasons is, and this is why a lot of the vegan activists like Earthling Ed and Joey Carbstrong, they discourage vegans from eating organic plant produce, because the organic plant production relies upon livestock manure and urine, along with things like blood meal as soil amendments, so that the produce can be produced in quantity and quality and actually have some nutrition therein.
He's dropping bombs, everyone.
Pardon?
I says you're dropping bombs now.
So it's important for, when you move from just eating the regular, conventional, pesticide-laden, synthetic, fertilizer-reliant produce to organic. Well, now you're basically, again, you're eating death, because you're eating urine, manure, and blood meal supported plant production. So, it's almost like, for a vegan, it's almost like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But
there you go.
The fact of the matter is that God created the plants and the animals. Of course, most of the plants, the staple products that a vegan eats, are mostly GMO. So they've been genetically modified away from God's creation.
There you go.
But originally, God put the plants and the animals so that they fit together just like this. The plants support the animals, and the animals support the plants.
That's what we call an ecosystem, ladies and gentlemen.
Correct. When you remove the animals from the plants, then you've got a situation where you're going to be reliant upon harmful chemicals, synthetic fertilizers, mined fertilizers. The phosphorus, for example, is mined, and the estimates are, if demand remains what it is today, that we've got about 80 years of mined phosphorus left. And if we have a vegan world and they mandate veganism and criminalize animal agriculture, then that reliance upon mined phosphorus is going to skyrocket. And we're going to take that 80 years of phosphorus remaining and probably reduce that to 35 or 40 years. So a mandated vegan world and criminalizing animal agriculture is a short, dead-end street, and it would result in a global famine that would wipe out 99% of the population.
Incredible facts, ladies and gentlemen. Facts. You look this up, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna fall upon some amazing truths. This is absolutely awesome. I'm really glad you decided to come on here and tell us this, because you're opening up my eyes to a different view on things. It's sad how we have to resort to this kind of living. You can't even trust anything that you go buy at the store. You can't trust the industries that they're putting some good nutrients in the foods that we're consuming. Can't trust companies to not put chemicals in our water. I mean, eventually you're that's it. That's why this is one of the reasons why we're creating this community, because we want to come together and create a network of panels of truth and creating solutions to better the advancement of and obviously be doing this will be fighting against the system and fighting against these agendas of you speak. And I understand completely, and I'm all in. You understand? I'm absolutely all in, because first and foremost, I am a advocate of truth. So whatever that means is I will follow that. You understand? I'm a firm believer in that, and this is the thing that I will defend. I will die on that hill. This is how I am, and this is the way I want people to see things, and I want people to see the truth, because it's the only way that we can help each other out and make this world a better place. Back to you, Garland.
Yeah, I totally agree. We need to go where the truth leads us. Um, I found a need to educate people about the dark side of crop agriculture because I pay attention to the lobbying that's going on around the world, lobbying governments to criminalize animal agriculture and to mandate a vegan world order. And so I have spent a lot of time and effort and studying and putting together videos that would educate people on things like the amount of animal death associated with crop agriculture, and to my dismay, there's a very high percentage of vegans who will laugh at crop deaths, for instance. And
while we're on that subject, you remember that video that you had showed Jason? Do you want to show that video? I would share your screen if you want to show that video to our viewers.
Let me see if I can pull it up.
Yeah, pull that up. That was an absolutely, people. If this doesn't wake you up, I don't know what will. This is one like very extreme video. This is what's happening in the world, and these are things that, like Garland said, that if we do not, point these things out and bring them to the light, then how are you able to make a difference? And if you're willfully ignorant about it, and you do not go research about it and try to make a difference, like sharing out Garland's channel, because he speaks about this and he's a voice, in other words, for the truth movement. So I would encourage people to go and subscribe to his channel and share all that great information out.
I'm pretty harsh on the vegans, so don't be offended by some of the language I use here. I don't use any explicit, cursing or anything, but I do. I made this video after having been called a murderer and a rapist on a daily basis by a bunch of vegans. So this is the first of a series that I made exposing the death and suffering associated with crop-based agriculture. This kind of summarizes all of the different ways that a vegan diet, and this is from the perspective of someone, myself, with the idea in mind that mainstream veganism is being used as a tool by the controllers to render us nutritionally deficient and reliant on them for supplements to stay healthy and alive.
The vegan kill cult, he calls it. So please, this is not the views necessarily of our channel, so disclaimer. And I'm just sharing out some crucial information that be pertinent in the truther movement, but I do not advocate any division between any human being whatsoever in any spheres. So this is this disclaimer of this channel. So please bear with me. I am going to start the video.
Truth be known, veganism is an absolute bloodbath and torture train. The annual number of animals slaughtered and maimed in the name of grains, nuts, seeds, roots, tubers, fruits, and vegetables is absurdly gargantuan. Farmers routinely unleash an arsenal of deadly weaponry upon squirrels, rabbits, raccoon, mice, rats, possum, groundhogs, ground squirrels, moles, voles, deer, birds, turtles, frogs, bees, aphids, crickets, grasshoppers, worms, caterpillars, grubs, ants, and many, many more. who compete for the nuts, seeds, fruits, leaves, and tubers so sought after by the human herbivore population. Come harvest time, combines and harvesters unavoidably shred millions of living critters who are living and breathing among the crops. It is a cold, cold heart that can ignore the palpable suffering that's required to bring plant-based foods to the plates of culpable vegans around the world. Vegetable farmers begin their annual reign of hell on earth by tilling the soil. Tillage kills all sorts of soil life and completely disrupts a healthy soil horizon profile. Each time a farmer tills a field, massive carbon emissions are released from the soil, downgrading soil carbon and quality each and every time. This is the real driving force of global desertification. Then, to keep the vegetable and fruit heathens supplied with their fix, the farmers wage war against nature with the sides. Side is a suffix that means to kill, and boy do they. These vegetable and fruit farmers spray and sprinkle indiscriminate bactericides, herbicides, insecticides, and rodenticides. In addition to conventional chemical warfare, they also attack with live traps, steel traps, drown traps, pistols, rifles, shotguns, dogs, and grain grinders. All this killing is not just a one-time event either. This is an annual cycle of schizophrenic annual cruelty that repeats itself year in and year out, dealing out misery, bloodshed, and environmental havoc and chaos in the name of veganism. Meanwhile, one pasture-raised grass-fed cow can feed one human being for 3.5 years, while not sabotaging human health with the inflammatory excess of omega-6s, toxins, and anti-nutrients that plant foods bring to the table. It's pretty clear that vegans do not love animals. Vegans do not love people. They know that more animals are killed and maimed through veganism than any other way of eating, and yet they push harder, because their ultimate schizophrenic goal is to plow, pesticide, and genocide this planet into a sterile and lifeless has-been. Thanks for watching.
Wow, what a revealing video, man.
I've been told many times by vegans that by educating people on this and these subjects that I've apparently got too much time on my hands. I think that's a horrible rebuttal, because if you can't take the time to learn about the animal suffering and death associated with the crop agriculture that brings the vegan menu to market, then your professed caring and love for the animals is not sincere. If your love for the animals is sincere, then you would believe that anyone who takes the time to comb through the data and find out what exactly the death toll is on the animals in regard to mainstream crop production, if you're against that, then how can your love for the animals be sincere? It really can't.
That is absolutely contradictory. I have to agree with you. That's being just ignorant. I see exactly where you're getting at. See,
yeah,
like I said before, in a spiritual sense, this is like a separate thing. You know what I'm saying? When we're looking for spiritual truth, and there's a certain diet that you need to go through to get to a spiritual awakening, and there's a certain process through that because you have like all these chemicals in the brain, and there's also a bunch of symbolism that I could show you, Garland, that would probably resonate with you, and you'd see that all these messages are already embedded inside of us, and literally in the brain and in other aspects of our human anatomy. So, and most of the spiritual scriptures are also referring to these things. So these are most of the kinds of things that I want to point out when I'm speaking out about this. Is I'm not like a vegan activist, or I'm not pushing any kind of agenda, but what I'm trying to do is trying to show the people my perspective on it. That's exactly what I was trying to say.
I get where you're coming from, and I think that a lot of this you just haven't looked at, and I think that you would admit that a lot of what I've brought to the table here is new information. I think that people who are presented with this information for the first time, who take it and absorb it rather than rejecting it, these are people who I can come together with. It's the people who reject this information and remain willfully ignorant. I do think that ignorance is one thing. Willful ignorance of suffering and death, I think, is a damning sin. If you're turning your back, you may be familiar with Pink Floyd's song, The Turning Away. I think veganism
actually, it's not a song that I've listened to very much, but I'd have to listen to it again.
Well, it starts out on the turning away from the pale and downtrodden. And I think veganism, the mainstream veganism that turns its back on the animals that suffer and die as a result of the intentional crop protection measures, the shooting, the trapping and gassing, gargantuan amounts of pesticides, the mining that's involved, the petroleum industry reliance of mainstream plant-based menu. When these vegans turn their back on those animals and they focus only on farm animals, like a pig that's on a farm, they've got tremendous amounts of love for and compassion. But when it comes to the wild pigs that are shot,
you're so right, man. Jesus, like I can't help myself. I had to say it. And this is an awesome conversation. Garland Farms here is dropping bombs consecutively, one after the other. People, please go ahead and subscribe to his channel. Show him some love, people. You just blow me away with everything, man. It's just you're just so right. Because in other words, if you love animals, then why are you letting them die like that? I mean, you should, if you're pushing that kind of thing, you should push it all the way, and you should be behind Garland Farms, because I think he's trying to expose something that otherwise people would just stay blind to and not confront. And no, I think you're doing a great job, Garland, and this is awesome information. Please continue.
Thank you, Pat. As I was saying, a vegan will have, say for chickens, for instance, there's a lot of vegan compassion for chickens being slaughtered for food. However, the birds that are slaughtered for their food, they don't seem to care about at all. In fact, they don't even want to know about it. And that's this willful ignorance, the great vegan turning away from the pale and downtrodden. If you just get on YouTube and go to the search bar and type in the words crop protection shooting, you'll be served up video after video, hundreds, thousands of videos showing animals like pigs, doves, magpies, swans, deer, rabbits, squirrels, every wild animal that you can think of that would encroach or wander too close to crops, innocently wandering too close to crops because they've been displaced from their habitat, and they wander into the crops because they can sense that there's food there for them, and they get shot. And it's not like the slaughtering industry where there's a misconception that, like a cattle slaughtering, that they'll spend 15 minutes torturing a cow before they kill it because they're sick in the head. The fact is that the vast majority of these facilities, their top priority is to make money. And if you spend a bunch of time torturing an animal before you slaughter it, then you're wasting a lot of time, and you'd be passing up on tremendous amounts of profits because you would reduce your productivity by a large margin. But if you go and watch these YouTube videos, these crop protection shooting videos, you'll see that these 50 or a herd of 50 or 75 pigs wanders onto a cabbage patch or a field of turnips, and there'll be the farmer will hire gunmen to shoot these pigs, and they're shooting from a distance. So you'll see that the pig might first be shot in the buttocks and then begin to run, and you can see the blood spraying. And then the next bullet catches them in the front shoulder, and that still doesn't kill them. The pig is still able to lurch forward. So they shoot them another time. This time it's in the gut. And so it may take six gunshots from a distance just to put down one pig over the course of, it's not an instantaneous death at all. It's a minute and a half of pure torture for every pig that's killed in the protection measures required to bring the vegan menu to market. These crop agriculture operations also use rodenticides to kill moles and voles and field mice, all types of little living creatures. These are anticoagulant rodenticide bait stations, and these little animals wander in there innocently looking for food, and they eat these poisons that slowly bleed them to death internally over 10 or 14 days. And it's not a painless death. These animals are in agony for 2 weeks before they finally die. And it's this suffering that I do not see the vegans concerned about. The compassion for these wild animals that are dying slow, miserable deaths for the vegan menu, the compassion doesn't exist at all. There's, in fact, most of the time, and this is sad, that most of the time when I approach a vegan with this information, they'll laugh and scoff at those deaths. And they'll say something like, well, what do you expect us to do? They're trespassing on the crops that produce our food. What do you want us to do? Starve to death? Well, that still does not address the issue. The issue is that they're pointing at me as a murderer because I'm eating meat, and eating meat requires animals to die. Yet they're not facing the fact that eating plants also requires animals to die. And in fact, here in the United States, every year about 30 million cattle are slaughtered so that we can eat beef. However, there are about 67 million birds that die just from the pesticides that are sprayed on the crops that produce the vegan and plant-based menus. You've got more than twice as many birds that are dying for a plant-based menu than there are cattle dying to produce meat in the United States. 33 million versus 67 million. And that's just birds. We still haven't visited the fish that die from agrochemical runoff, the frogs and other aquatic organisms that die. The oceanic dead zones are coming from the Mississippi River, which is fed by the tributaries that run through the corn and soybean fields. So the numbers of fish that die because of crop agriculture haven't even been tallied. No one even knows what that number is. We can come up with an estimate. I've done estimates on this, and that's just the fish. It's likely in the quadrillions per year.
Crazy.
And quadrillion, I mean, we're talking like over 4 quadrillion. And then if you look at, say, the vegan rule that you can't eat honey because it exploits bees, because they love insects so much. Well, if we talk about the insects that are killed by the pesticides to grow the soy and the corn and the turnips and the apples and the pears, now you've got another number that's beyond quadrillions. So the death involved with plant or crop agriculture is exponentially higher than what's required to produce meat.
Yeah.
Another thing, the USDA has published the fact that Americans in the United States are already eating a plant-based diet. 70% of our calories for the average human being living in the United States, according to the USDA, 70% of their diet comes from plant-based sources and 30% comes from meat-based sources. And we've never been sicker. We've never been so riddled with diseases of civilization as we are today.
Wow. So keep on going, my friend, because this is absolutely astounding. I'm like, you're going to knock me off my chair, man. This is great stuff, man.
To be honest with you, Pat, I'm so happy that you're not dismissive of this issue. It tells me
of course I'm not. I would absolutely not be dismissive of anything that is destroying any living being, any living creature, any human being, and destroying literally a good way of life. Like everything is being like completely perverted and upside down, and they're bringing this into this digital agenda where you're going to link your brain to this freaking computer and upload your consciousness, and this is where this is going is. So I agree with you where this is going is like there's just like nature is being absolutely devastated, and and yesterday I was on a panel and we were talking about anger and passion, but guys, come on, I mean, this does not equate to fear, because this doesn't like scare me, just doesn't just piss you off. This just and it's not because I'm scared. This is because this makes me angry to know that this is the kind of information that is being suppressed, and channels like Garland Farm is probably shadow banned, so he's because of the controllers who have these different agendas that are coming out right now than they've been pushing for the past decade or maybe more, just to get people and let's say the sheeple going in one direction and following, because everybody will follow the not everybody, sorry, I'm using the wrong words, but the sheep will follow the shepherd. And right now the shepherd is who? The shepherd is the government, the shepherd is mainstream media, the shepherd is the television, radio. That's the shepherd. So what the sheep follow is the shepherd. So whatever mainstream says, the sheep will follow. So I think it's very important that if we're like waking up one mind at a time, and many roads lead to Rome, so that means that it doesn't matter from which aspect you're seeing the truth, or in what subject you're working it out, that it's always important that you bring it out to the light and you share this information out with other people. And this is exactly what OTW is all about, is sharing the news, the real news, what's really happening out there. You understand? This is why I wanted to do this channel, is because I wanted to bring this information to the light and have everybody, have a glimpse, at least, like, even if only 20 people see this, but these 20 people will, share it out to other people if it resonates with them, and that's so important And I think that will help us with our spiritual and daily life evolution, and how we're going to proceed towards the future. Back to you.
Yeah, I agree, Pat. I to help people understand, when I speak to vegans about this issue, the only crop deaths that they're familiar with are the crop deaths associated with the harvesting process.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of animals that die that way, but that's just a tiny fraction of the animals that are actually dying. Probably the lion's share of death and suffering of animals that goes on comes from the pesticides, like the neonicotinoid pesticides that are driving species towards extinction, as well as the glyphosate. Now, the glyphosate, remember, is the chemical pesticide that's manufactured by Monsanto, which was purchased by Bayer. And did you know that it's been proven that this glyphosate is causing cancer in people eating a plant-based diet? In fact, in 2021, Bayer set aside $4.5 billion to pay for lawsuits against them for the cancer that they're causing in human beings. Now, that is just considered a cost of doing business for them. They don't care about the people that they're killing with glyphosate, and they don't care about the amount of money that they're having to pay out, because to them, $4.5 billion is just a drop in the bucket. The amount of profits that they're making by spraying this glyphosate on all of this plant produce that's championed by people like Joey Carbstrong and Earthling Ed, who will tell people avoid organic produce, because in their minds, organic plant produce relies upon livestock manure and blood meal. And so they don't want people eating organic. They want people eating the glyphosate-laden, poisoned fruits, vegetables, grains, legumes, etc. And so, it's important, I think, for the plant-based population to come to terms with and face the dark side of mainstream crop agriculture, the crop agriculture that's responsible for most of their food.
Dropping bombs again. You're getting good at this there, Garland.
Well, I've been working on it for a long time. I think it's, and what's really lit a fire under me in trying to educate people about these facts is, first of all, realizing what you had mentioned earlier, and that is that this information is being suppressed. Also, just the fact that around the world, there's a lot of money changing hands, lobbying going on in an effort to criminalize all animal agriculture, not just the concentration camp feeding operations, but also the regenerative ruminant grazing operations like mine, where the animals are treated so humanely and so loving. In fact, I've got a video, if you don't mind, we can watch that kind of gives you an idea of what it's like here on my farm.
Yeah, so if everybody hasn't, whoever is new and just popped in, we're going to pop in soon. This is Garland Farms. Please go sub to his channel. He has awesome information about the agricultural, devastating, systemized, controller implemented killing of animals in all kinds of different forms of like we were saying before, it's an ecosystem. If you start killing off things that are in the system, then you're destroying the ecosystem, and you're gonna end up with a desert. Just literally a barren desert place.
Can you see my screen, Pat?
Yes, it is. Yes, I do. So I'm going to add it to the stream right now. Okay.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So the screen I've got up now is showing this. Was what I wanted to show was the Bayer glyphosate cancer set aside. So far they've set aside 16 billion to pay for cancer settlements. And that's there's probably a certain number of vegans that are in receiving some of that money.
This is Garland Farms, everyone. Wow.
That's it.
Wow, that was awesome, man. Nearly brought me to tears. And we are back. That was a great video, people. Please share the link.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go out and take care of the animals. I've got some things
That's
that
all
I've
good,
got
my
to
friend.
get done, and I appreciate you having me on, Pat. I think you're a truth brother, and I so glad we had this conversation.
Yes, I'm glad that we actually cleared up the table, and now
Yeah,
we can start on a fresh new start.
Yeah, I think we've definitely got a fresh start here, and I think that we've got a kind of a foundation for a good friendship too.
All right, that's great to hear, man. I'm glad to hear that, and I really appreciate you coming on and giving us all these gems and bombs and revealing all this awesome information that I think a lot, or maybe most people, were ignorant to. And if not, well, then if you're not doing anything about it, then it's like faith without works. It's not worth nothing. So you can be aware of it, not do anything. You're not really making a difference or changing anything about it. Then you're just, like Garland said, you don't care. So I think Garland is actually trying to make a difference, and that's what we're all about here at OTW News, at We Are Awake TV, and everyone who's part of the community. So I'm glad to have you on here with us, and I wish that you'll come back and on future panels and join in on the discussions. And I would ask you to come and subscribe to We Are Awake TV, because once or twice a week there are panels that are on, and subjects that are completely out of this world, and maybe you would like enjoy the conversations that are being had over there.
Okay. Thank you for having me on, Pat.
Well, thank you for being here. Have a nice day, sir.
You too, my friend. Goodbye.
Peace. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Garland Farms. Please go like, share, subscribe, and go watch his videos. Give him some love.